Hi, welcome to Video Math Lessons. This is a Math 12 pre-calculus lesson. Our topic will be quadratic functions. Specifically, we'll be looking at completing the square. Now, in the past, you've done, if you want to solve for the roots, you want to find the roots. So if I want to find the roots, you've done quadratic formula, or you've done completing the square in Algebra 2. So we're going to look at more completing the square, a little bit harder problems for completing the square. So if we start off with a function, f of x equals 2x squared plus 8x plus 6. And when you look at, it's a quadratic because it has the square up here on the x. This would be a pretty easy, plug in the quadratic formula and do it. Well, we're going to do completing the square. It's a little harder. So it depends on how your teacher showed you how to do it. This is the method I use. So if I'm just going to find the roots, I want to set this part here equal to 0. So I set the 2x squared plus 8x plus 6 equals 0. And the reason why we do that, because if this means y, the roots occur where y equals 0. So that's why we set it to 0. And what we do now is, I like to move the 6 over. So 2x squared plus 8x equals negative 6. And then I'll divide by this 2, get rid of the 2. You can easily divide by the 2 first, and you get the same exact stuff. So we got x squared plus 4x equals negative 3. Now, here's the completing the square part. So now we look at this function, and I want to complete the square. So now I look here to the left. I got the x's. Now I don't do a common factor. What I want to do is I want to complete the square. So what I do is I take this x in the front, keep the sign in the middle, so it's a plus. You take half of the 4x. Well, actually the 4. I'm only looking at the coefficient. Half of the 4 is 2, so you put a 2 there. Now if I actually FOIL this out, if you actually do this, you get x squared plus 4x plus a 4. So let me just show that up here so you can see why we're doing this. And after this, I will not do this anymore. So if I actually FOIL this out, you get x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now, up here, we have x squared plus 4x. There is no 4. So if I want this to be a true statement, I have to add 4 to this side. And since this is an equation, whatever you do to the left side, you should do to the right side to keep it balanced. So I'm going to put a plus 4 over there. So now, I do the right-hand side. So 4 minus 3 is a 1. Take the square root, so x plus 2. And when you do this completing the square, don't forget you got to do the positive and negative square root. So I'm just going to move this upstairs. So I got x plus 2 equals plus minus 1. Move the 2 over. So x equals negative 2 plus minus 1. And since I can do this, I'm going to rip it apart. So negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. So if they say find the roots, you could easily do it this way. Now, this is also, I could have factored this problem. I could have done a quadratic formula. And the problems occur is when can't you factor it, right? When doesn't it break down? Well, that would be irrationals and imaginaries. So let's take a look at another one. So here's a new question. So f of x equals 2x squared plus 6x plus 1. Okay? And same, I want to find the roots. I want to find the roots. Now this one doesn't factor. Okay? I could actually, multiply the front and back, try to find the term that breaks down. So it doesn't work. So what we're going to do is I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to move the 1 over. Now, I'm not going to show that little step in between. I set 0. So I'm just going to move the 1 over. I got a negative 1. I can divide everything by 2. So this is where it's going to get a little more complicated. So now I have a fraction in the problem. And this is, people tend not to like fractions, but you just got to deal with it. And if you have a hard time, just use a calculator. So now we're going to do the same thing as before. I'm going to take half the middle term. So it's x plus 3 over 2. I'm going to square it. Now, if I square what I have here, I'm missing whatever that number would be. And if I square 3 over 2, you get 9 over 4. I'm going to add it to that side. I'm also going to add it to this side. Now, either calculator or brains, like whatever way you want to do it, you got to solve this. Well, I'm going to use just my brains here. So negative half is really negative 2 over 4. So if I do negative 2 fourths plus 9 fourths, I get x plus 3 halves squared equals 7 fourths. I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Don't forget to do square root. And if it's okay, I'm going to break this down through the top and bottom separately. Just going to move this up. So I get x plus 3 halves equals positive negative radical 7 over square root of 4 is a 2. Move this over. X equals negative 3 halves plus minus rad 7 over 2. And that's the answer. If you actually wanted to combine this, this is good. This is a good answer. That's a good answer. That's the roots. They're irrational. That's fine. If you wanted to, if it was multiple choice, it might look like this. Just be aware. But this answer up here is fine. Now, what if they don't want you to solve for the roots? What if they just want you to rewrite the equation? And they'll say, rewrite the equation using the completing the square, or rewrite the parabola in the vertex form. Well, that's this part. So let's go back to our original function. We had f of x equals 2x squared plus 8x plus 6. Now, before we set this to 0 and everything, but I'm not doing the roots. I'm not finding roots. So I don't want to set this to 0. So this is the way I do it. What I like to do is I like to move this 6 over a little bit this way, just to give myself a little bit of room. So I write 2x squared plus 8x. Now I'm not subtracting it. I'm not doing anything. I'm just moving it over, give myself a little room. Now over in the front here, I do want this x squared to have, I don't want a coefficient in front of it. So I'm going to take out a 2. So I'm going to greatest common factor this thing. And notice I'm not taking out the x because I want the x in it. And so I put this little space here and I put a parenthesis. Now we're going to do exactly what we did before. If I take half of this, I get a 2. Oops. And if I square it, if I square 2, I get a 4. And that would be inside this parenthesis. Now, this 2 is down here. I'm not allowed to just add a 4 into this problem. In reality, I didn't add 4. I didn't add a 4. It looks like a 4 here. But when you distribute this 2 to the 4, I really added 8. I added 8 to the side. So to keep this thing balanced, remember, this is still just f of x. To keep this thing balanced, I have to subtract 8 off of it right away. So whatever I do, so I got to subtract this 8 right here, minus 8. And then do this right side. So negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2. That's my answer. That's the equation. The same equation, just written differently. And if you don't believe it, we could try it on a calculator. So go to your calculator. Plug in this one into y1, plug this one into y2, and you'll see it's the same equation. Try it out. So I've punched them in, and now I hit graph, and if it's correct, you got a parabola, and then the other one's right on top of it, so it's the same exact parabola. So these two equations are equivalent. Let's try it again. Once again, we're just going to rewrite. That's all we're doing, rewrite. So we got f of x equals 3x squared plus 6x minus 1. And hopefully people sometimes don't like these, but actually it's less work than the other one, solving for the roots. So this is good. So let's just, I'm going to take this. I'm going to break down common. I'm going to take out a 3. So it'll be x squared plus 2x. I'm going to leave a little bit of space, and I'll just put the minus 1 over here on the side. Now, here we go. Take x plus half that. It's a 1. Square the 1. That goes right here. Now, I did not add 1 to the equation. I put 1 inside this parenthesis. So when you distribute, I really added 3 to this problem. Well, if you add 3, you better take 3 off right away since it's all on the right-hand side of the equation. You want to keep it balanced. And then we do this, bring this down. We get minus 4. This is the same equation rewritten. If you wish, you can plug it in your calculator. Check. It's the same problem. Oh, that's it, guys. Thank you for watching, and have a good night. Thanks.